having a great Christmas, and between me and my new co-host Jackson here, I thought I'd like to do something a little bit different. So if you had been watching me or watching my Twitter posts or Facebook posts over the past few days, even a few weeks, I've been asking people to put together some questions anonymously and go onto my Curious Cat anonymous question account and give me some questions to do something a little bit different and not always have some deep, meaningful debate about something, and just allow you guys to ask me a couple questions. So I thought, what a great time before Christmas to do something a little bit different. So I'm just going to get straight into it. I haven't seen these questions before or looked into them. Let's go. First question is single. Next question. Fave wild animal and why? I think my favourite wild animal when I was younger was a cheetah. And I've always liked fast animals. I remember when I was in Kenya when I was maybe 8 years old, I got the chance to actually see one in person, and since then it's probably always been one of my more favourites, but I love loads of wild animals. Next question. What do you think would have been different if you had studied in your home country? Question mark. For those who don't know, I study in the Czech Republic. Knowledge-wise, stay. Knowledge-wise and practical skills? Question mark. Pros and cons about educating in the Czech Republic? Smiley face. I'm very lucky to have a group of friends who studied in the UK and have people who studied here with me, obviously in the Czech Republic. And as far as I'm aware, the difference between UK and EU graduates is pretty small, if at all. And not in a way that makes EU better or EU worse, or UK better or UK worse, but more that there are different emphasis on the veterinary graduates that come out. After the whole Brexit situation, is that specialists and people who want to go into meat hygiene, food hygiene, and many specialists actually tend to come from, or be more likely out of the new graduates to become, to be from the EU. So all I know is that when I compare some of the things that I've learned in the EU as opposed to the UK, is that we have so much scientific information. So I think one of the positives about being in the EU is that there is lots, and there's loads and loads and loads and loads, and a huge amount of scientific emphasis. And that makes sense to go into things like specialisms. I think the cons, definitely living abroad away from family, but within that, there's also the positive of being in Europe, and being in Europe is such a unique experience. I'm 2 hours away from Vienna, I'm 2 hours away from Prague, I'm 4 hours away from Budapest. So this is kind of what I tell people. And I think the negatives is obviously just the process of learning the EU way or the Czech way, and having to transfer some of that back to the UK if I was going to go back to the UK. So there are positives and negatives within that, but I think overall it's generally very comparable, because veterinary medicine is still veterinary medicine. What do you think about keeping exotic pets? Question mark. Good question. I am growing into my exotics very recently. Within the last year, exotics has become more and more of a thing, or an area that I'm interested in. Snakes and turtles and small mammals, birds, all sorts and different shapes and sizes, because there's a huge amount of variety in exotics. And I think logically at the heart of it, for me, all animals should be able to exist in the environment that they were not bred for, but were born into. So, for example, I made a post about this, about horses and whether we should ride them. And I think this rule is starting to become more of a general idea about how I wish animals could be in the future. At the same time, I know it's less probable to ever happen, considering how we are as humans. So I think If keeping exotic pets is possible, then I just hope that people are able to have the ones which are more likely to be comfortable in human interaction. But obviously the ideal for me is that all animals are able to live in their environment undisturbed, or as undisturbed as possible. But that's not to say that people who have exotic animals are bad people or anything like that. It's a very difficult debate to just say it's good, it's bad, and there's a huge amount of factors that need to be discussed. So I think it'd be different, for example, if you say had a pelican versus having a very small type of tortoise, for example, or having a ferret. They're all exotic animals, there's huge variety and there are implications within that. So next question says, favourite colour? Blue. Next question says, height. Next question, worst thing you've ever done to an animal? Something that I don't think is worst, but is something that is a particular problem within veterinary medicine, or can be a very interesting issue to have to work around. And that's when we get animals that are suffering, but the owner, for whatever reason, for many reasons, doesn't have the financial capability to pay for the required treatment. And that can often lead into some very difficult situations, especially with the word euthanasia. So often within your veterinary practice, or in any veterinary practice, especially within small animals, and sometimes the owner says, well, they can't afford a lot of the different treatments that are required to make whatever disease or syndrome or problem better. And this means that we're often faced with the balance between having a very ill dog or a very ill cat or a very ill animal and not having the money to be able to look after or maintain or improve the health status of the animal. And this can be very difficult because sometimes the animal is in such an emergency situation that we need to act quickly. Now, we're under a legal obligation to maintain and give emergency support, but beyond that, it's really up to us as vets to decide if we can afford to pay for certain treatments without the required finance from the owners. And as vets, we can't continue to do this. We can't offer free support all the time, so it's very, very difficult. And sometimes the best option which is provided to us and within the financial capabilities of the owner is things like euthanasia. And it's a very difficult situation to make. I think that's the end of this Q&A session. Last note, I donate to a charity every December the 25th, or more than one charity every Christmas. And this year is no different, but I'm going to add a charity this year. So the three charities I always donate to are Doctors Without Borders, and this is one of my favourite charities because the amount of money that you give, there's such a high percentage of that goes into frontline services. I really believe that it's one of the better charities out there. Second charity is SANCOB, and SANCOB is a very long abbreviation. It is a South African rehabilitation centre in Cape Town, or just outside Cape Town. And they deal with a lot of the South African penguins that are often coming into contact with oil spills. And I worked there for 8 weeks, or 7 or 8 weeks when I was 17 for the whole summer. And I always donate to them because they do great work, and one day hopefully I'll get to go back. And the last charity I always donate to is Birmingham Dogs Home. I always got my dogs from Birmingham Dogs Home. And finally, new charity, but I don't think anyone will find it a surprise, I'm going to donate to the World Veterinary Service, or WVS. And I said this before in previous vlogs, I've said this on my page, but WVS, please, 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 and go and donate. They've just won Charity of the Year 2016. They're just a fantastic charity, so please, 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 if you love this charity or like this charity or never even heard of this charity, please please donate to any one of the charities, but WVS as well. And that's it. So I wish everyone a Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all the best for 2017. Ciao.